Have you ever wondered how far someone could go to protect a family that isn't even theirs? Imagine being the only line of defense between masked robbers with guns and a terrified family you serve. But you stand tall, ready to risk your life. That's exactly what happened when a maid named Clara Hayes faced the most terrifying night of her life. And what her millionaire employer discovered about her afterward left him frozen in tears. If the story touched your heart, show your love, like, share, and comment your thoughts. And subscribe to our channel. Clara Hayes had worked as a maid in the sprawling estate of William Cross, a self-made millionaire who built his empire in finance. William was known for his discipline and ambition, but also for his distant nature. He lived with his wife, Margaret, and their 2 children, Ella, a soft-spoken 8-year-old who loved fairy tales, and Jacob, a mischievous 5-year-old with endless curiosity. Clara was different from the other staff. She worked quietly, kept to herself, and never spoke about her past. She wore her uniform neatly, her hair always tied in a bun, her steps careful and graceful. She blended into the background of the grand mansion, but the children adored her. Ella often sat in the kitchen as Clara prepared meals, and Jacob followed her around, asking endless questions about life. But William barely noticed her. To him, Clara was just another employee. Margaret, kind at heart, occasionally tried to make small talk, but Clara always smiled politely and shifted the subject. Nobody in that household knew who Clara really was. One cold evening, the Cross family gathered in the living room. The chandelier glistened overhead, the fireplace flickered, and soft classical music filled the air. Clara was dusting the shelves nearby when William's security system beeped oddly. He frowned. "Margaret, did you invite anyone over?" he asked. "No," she replied, her voice uncertain. Seconds later, the front door burst open. 3 masked men in black stormed inside, pointing guns directly at the family. Margaret screamed, clutching the children. William instinctively pulled them behind him, his heart racing. "Stay quiet and nobody gets hurt," one of the robbers growled. Clara froze for a second, her hands tightening around the duster she was holding. Her mind raced, but her body didn't tremble. She had seen danger before, and she knew she couldn't just stand back. The men moved closer, demanding money, jewelry, and access to the safe. William's voice shook as he tried to reason with them. But when one of the robbers pointed his gun at little Jacob, Clara stepped forward. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice firm and commanding. The robbers turned, surprised. Clara's fists clenched. She stood between them and the family, her frame steady like a wall. "What are you doing, Maid?" one robber sneered. "You'll be dead in seconds." But Clara didn't back down. Her eyes were sharp, her stance calculated. To everyone's shock, she raised her fists like someone who knew how to fight. The family watched in disbelief. Ella clung to her mother's dress, whispering, "Mommy, Clara looks like a superhero." The robbers laughed, but within seconds, laughter turned into chaos. Clara moved with speed and precision, striking the first robber's wrist, making his gun clatter to the floor. She spun and kicked another, knocking him into the coffee table. The third pulled the trigger, but Clara ducked, sweeping his legs before delivering a punch so powerful it knocked his mask halfway off. Margaret gasped. William stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. His maid, quiet, reserved Clara, was fighting like a trained soldier. The robbers regrouped, angrier now, and one pulled a knife. But Clara didn't flinch. She twisted his arm, disarmed him, and pinned him against the wall. Within minutes, all 3 lay on the floor, groaning in pain. Clara panted heavily, her fists still raised, her eyes scanning for danger. When she was certain it was over, she lowered her arms. The silence that followed was deafening. William stared at her, his mouth slightly open. The man who had built billion-dollar deals, who always stayed in control, couldn't form a single word. His maid had just saved his family's life. The police soon arrived, hauling the robbers away. Reporters circled the mansion, but Clara stayed quiet, refusing to give interviews. That night, as the children hugged her tightly, William finally asked the question that had been burning inside him. "Clara, who are you?" Clara lowered her eyes. For the first time since she began working at the Cross estate, her calm facade cracked. She sat down, her hands trembling. "I didn't want anyone to know," she whispered. "I used to be a soldier, special forces. I fought in wars you've only read about. But after I lost my little boy during a bombing overseas, I left everything behind. I couldn't carry that life anymore. I wanted silence, peace. That's why I took this job." Margaret covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. Ella, too young to understand fully, hugged Clara's arm and whispered, "I wish I could have met your little boy." William's chest tightened. He had always seen Clara as invisible, but now he saw her as a woman who had carried unbearable pain and still chose to protect others. "You risked your life for us," he said softly. "For my children. Clara, I don't know how to thank you." Clara shook her head. "You don't need to thank me. I couldn't stand by and watch innocence be destroyed again." In the days that followed, William's attitude changed. He no longer saw Clara as a maid but as part of his family. He offered her a new role, head of household security, but Clara declined politely. She didn't want recognition. She wanted to heal, but the family never let her feel invisible again. Jacob drew pictures of her as a superhero. Ella wrote a storybook titled The Brave Maid Who Saved Us. Margaret often invited her to sit with them at dinner. And William, the man who had once overlooked her existence, began to respect her deeply. One evening, as the children played in the garden, William walked up to Clara. "You once lost a family, Clara," he said quietly. "But I hope you know, you found another one here." Clara's eyes glistened. For the first time in years, a small smile spread across her face. And in that moment, the quiet maid who had once lived in the shadows realized her greatest battle had finally led her to a place of light. Sometimes the strongest people carry the heaviest scars. But when they choose love over fear, they don't just protect others, they heal themselves too.